Welcome to this presentation on COBRA. Today we will address the topic of sending the election notice. My name is Juan Pablo Amado, and I am an attorney specializing in labor and employment law. I will use my knowledge to help you understand when and how to send a valid COBRA election notice. COBRA stands for the Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act. COBRA requires some employers to provide continued group health coverage to certain employees and their dependents who would otherwise lose coverage as a result of a qualifying event. COBRA includes a number of notice requirements. The COBRA election notice is one of the most important notices. During this presentation, we will walk through issues related to sending the election notice. COBRA notice requirements specifically apply to the plan administrator. Health plans usually identify the plan administrators in their plan documents. If no plan administrator is identified, the plan sponsor, which is usually the employer, will be considered the plan administrator. Many employers contract with a third-party administrator, or TPA, to take care of plan administrative functions, including COBRA administration. Keep in mind that even if the plan administrator contracts with another party to handle COBRA, the plan administrator is ultimately responsible for sending the notices. We should also discuss qualified beneficiaries, or persons eligible for COBRA coverage. Qualified beneficiaries can be the employee's spouse, or the employee's dependents, if they were covered by the plan on the day before the qualifying event. Children born to or adopted by the employer during a period of COBRA coverage may also be qualified beneficiaries. COBRA eligibility is triggered by a qualifying event that causes an employee to lose coverage under the plan. The qualifying event then triggers the notification process. Qualifying events under COBRA are employee termination of employment, except for gross misconduct, reduction in hours of employment, an employee's divorce or legal separation, the employee's death, a dependent child losing dependent status, and employee entitlement to Medicare. To be a true qualifying event, which triggers COBRA eligibility and notification requirements, the event must cause the employee to lose coverage under the plan. You may need to check your plan's eligibility rules in the plan document to determine whether coverage will actually be terminated. For example, legal separation does not always cause a spouse to lose coverage, and in most cases, Medicare entitlement does not cause a loss of coverage. In addition, the qualifying event must be the cause of losing plan coverage. Other reasons that terminate coverage, such as an employee's voluntary decision to cancel coverage, do not count as a qualifying event and do not trigger COBRA eligibility. However, there is an exception for cancellations in anticipation of a qualifying event, such as where an employee cancels a spouse's coverage in anticipation of a divorce. When a qualifying event occurs, the plan administrator is required to provide qualified beneficiaries with a COBRA election notice. However, the plan administrator must first be informed of the qualifying event. Qualified beneficiaries must inform their plan administrator of certain qualifying events within 60 days of the event. These are divorce, legal separation, and a child losing dependent status under the plan. Employers must inform the plan administrator of an employee's death, termination of employment, reduced work hours, and Medicare entitlement within 30 days of the event. After receiving notice of a qualifying event, the plan administrator must determine whether the individual is eligible for COBRA coverage. If the individual qualifies for COBRA coverage, the administrator must send an election notice explaining how to elect COBRA coverage. If the individual is not eligible for COBRA coverage, the administrator must send a notice of unavailability of coverage, explaining why COBRA coverage is not available. The deadlines for sending the election notice and the notice of unavailability are the same. In general, the plan administrator must send the notice within 14 days of receiving notice of the qualifying event. However, if the employer is the plan administrator, it has 44 days to send the notice. This gives the employer the entire 30 days it would have to send notice of the qualifying event to the plan administrator, plus the 14 days the plan administrator has to send the notice. There are specific content requirements for the election notice. It must identify the plan and the plan administrator so individuals know who to contact for more information. The notice must identify the qualifying event that is causing loss of coverage, all affected qualified beneficiaries, and the date regular plan coverage has terminated or will terminate. The notice must also explain how each qualified beneficiary can independently elect COBRA coverage and any deadlines for making the decision. The notice must inform qualified beneficiaries regarding the consequences of failing to elect or of waiving COBRA coverage. The election notice must also describe the extent of coverage, costs, payment due dates, and the coverage period. The length of COBRA coverage will depend on the type of qualifying event. COBRA covers qualified individuals for 18 months in the case of termination of employment or reduction of work hours, and for 36 months for all other qualifying events. The coverage period can be extended in some cases if there is a second qualifying event or if the qualified beneficiary is disabled. Finally, the election notice must include a number of required statements. For example, it must discuss when and how additional qualifying events or disability may extend COBRA coverage. It must emphasize that qualified beneficiaries should inform the plan administrator of any address changes, and it must state that the election notice does not describe all COBRA coverage provisions and that individuals should consult the summary plan description or contact the plan administrator for more information. Fortunately, the Department of Labor has issued a model election notice that plan administrators can use. This notice is available through the DOL's website. The model notice should be used only as a starting point, and it should be modified as necessary. Once the plan administrator has an election notice prepared, there are several options for distributing the notice. The notice may be mailed through first class, second class, third class, or certified mail. The notice can also be delivered in person. Alternatively, it can be sent electronically as long as the delivery complies with the DOL's rules for electronic transmission. Note that the notice must be delivered not only to the employee, but also to the employee's spouse and dependents. Therefore, administrator must also mail copies to the spouses and the dependents' last known addresses when applicable. It is generally recommended to keep thorough records of COBRA administration, especially of required notices. These records will allow you to prove compliance with COBRA and ERISA requirements. This is an example of a COBRA election notice log. This type of information can help protect you in the event of a dispute with a qualified beneficiary over whether a notice was provided. There are potential penalties for not sending a required election notice. You could face a lawsuit if a qualified beneficiary is not given the opportunity to elect COBRA coverage. Non-compliance may also lead to IRS fines of up to $110 per day. In addition, failing to send an election notice may give potential qualified beneficiaries additional time to become ill or injured, increasing the likelihood that they will elect COBRA. In summary, In order for the election process to begin, the plan administrator must receive notice of a qualifying event. The administrator must make a determination of COBRA eligibility and must send either an election notice or a notice of unavailability of coverage. The election notice must contain specific information about electing COBRA coverage. The plan administrator should keep record of all notices that are sent. Penalties may apply if these rules are not followed. In addition, do not hesitate to contact your broker with your COBRA compliance questions. Your broker has access to a full suite of documents that can help with your employment benefit compliance needs. I hope this presentation has helped you gain a better understanding of how to send COBRA coverage eligibility notification. Thank you for your time.